So this is I'm showing the slides for week 4B, and I think after I prepared the slides, I noticed the content is too much, and we may not cover it. We will not be able to cover it in one class. So I have divided into 2 classes. So in today's class, we are going to see the first 4 bullet points shown here. I have some questions on AnyPoint Studio. I will show you some flows, and I will ask you what the payload, the output payload will be, or what the log output will be, and so on. Then we'll talk about flow types. Just there are different types of flows. Why do we need them? When do we use them? Such kind of theory. And then in next class, we will use the different types of flows with hands-on data transformation, transforming data from one format to the other, and the data formats that we'll consider will be CSV, XML, JSON, and XL. And in today's class, after looking at the flow types, we will have Kahoot questionnaires, and our main focus after that will be DataWeave basics. So the reason that I'm covering the basics of DataWeave is you have started looking, encountering this kind of short DataWeave expressions, and in the data transformation also, when we transform from, for example, from XML to JSON and vice versa, we will use some DataWeave code. So that you don't feel overwhelmed when you see the code, it is better if we start with DataWeave basics, and you will understand when we perform the hands-on data transformation. And the other reason is also we will use DataWeave in the coming classes again and again, but we'll have a dedicated time for DataWeave. But if we start today, you will get time to study more, to take your time and study it very well. So for that reason, I have inserted the DataWeave basics in this class. So let me start with the questions I have. The questions I have in AnyPoint Studio. Have these questions. I will put them to the slides. So try to follow me on AnyPoint Studio in my screen. So let me start with the first question. The reason that I'm doing this is for some people, so people understand the concepts in different ways. Some people could understand it when you just explain the concept. Others may understand it better from questions. So that's why I have prepared questions. These questions are from the concepts that we have covered so far. And the certification question for a MuleSoft developer also look like this. So you have to make sure you understand this well. And if you don't understand it, you have to spend enough time on it to make sure you understand what we have covered so far. So the first question, you see there is a listener here, and there is set payload, followed by set variable, followed by set payload, followed by set variable. And we have breakpointers in this set payload, and in the second set payload, and in the second set variable. So the question is, I have put the question here under notes. As we said, in the notes section, you can write any notes that you think are helpful for you that can help you to understand what you are doing. So let me open, for example, I have Word document, and print the question, post the questions there, paste the questions there, and increase the font size so that you can read it. So this is what it is saying. So refer to the exhibit. The application is debugged in AnyPoint Studio and stops at the first breakpoint. What is the value of the payload displayed in the debugger at this breakpoint? What about when it stops at the second breakpoint? So the question is, what will be the payload if we run the application in debugger mode? What will be the payload when it is in the first breakpoint versus in the second breakpoint? So let's get back to here. My first payload is just my name. There is set variable loves MuleSoft is a value, followed by there is set payload it is another string, what about you? Then a variable, great to see you in the class. So the first question, if you want me to click and show you the content of this set, these components, you can ask me. But the first question is, if we run this in debug mode, and if it stops in the first breakpoint, at that point in the payload, what will you see? Will you have payload? What will be the value of the payload? Who can answer?
Your name. Your name.
Okay. Why?
Because it didn't process to the second payload, so it didn't read it.
Yes, perfect. Yes. So when it stops here, this component has not been executed. The second payload has not been executed. It will have the payload from the first set payload. So the value at that time for the payload will be my name. And the second one, when it stops in the second in this set variable, the second breakpoint, at that time, what will be the payload?
Wouldn't it be the same? Your name?
What about you?
What about you?
What about you?
It will add what about you?
Will it add or replace it?
Replace.
No, replace it.
Yes, replace it. And the reason that we were creating, that we were using variable yesterday was to save so that it doesn't get overwritten or replaced. So when you get data from different sources, for example, and if to save the previous payloads, when you merge them together, you can save the previous payloads as variables because the payload could get overwritten. So the first time when the listener gets triggered, the first time there is no payload. Next, when this one gets executed, the payload will be my name. When it gets here, there was no variable. Now, when this one gets executed, there will be a variable. The variable value will be loves MuleSoft. When it gets here, if before this one is executed, just the variable is loves MuleSoft and the payload is Saha Berhane. But when it gets here, that means this payload has been executed. So the payload will be replaced by what about you. And when this one gets executed, the variables, if I give them different variable names, they don't get overwritten. But if I give them the same variable name, it will get overwritten. So see this one in here. What is my variable name? The first one, it is var1, whereas in this one it is var2. So until the end, this variable will not replace this variable because I gave them different variable names. But if the variable name is the same, variables also get overwritten. So you have to remember that. Anyone has any questions?
Please check the record if it's working.
Yeah, okay. Where is it? Okay, yeah, it is recording. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. So does anyone have any question here? So a payload is set here. When this component gets executed, the payload value will be my name. A variable is being created here. So the variable name will be loves MuleSoft, but the variable value will be loves MuleSoft, but the variable name is var1. So to access this one, I can access it as vars.var1. Variables, we access them using vars.variable name. And payload is, if there is another payload in the flow, it replaces the previous payloads. And to save that, what we do is we create variables. And variables also, if we give them the same variable name, it can get overwritten. But in this case, we have different variable names. So yeah, I'm recording. Okay, we say that. Okay, so this is the first question. Anyone has any questions?
Do we give them different variable names just to see where it stopped at, or?
We can you repeat the question?
You said we give them different names so they don't get overwritten. Is it because just to see where in the process something happens? Is that why we give it different?
Yeah. So the reason we use variables is during the data processing. In your flow, you may need some data to use it again and again, or down the line in the flow. So you want to save the data as a variable. And there is another data coming from another source also. That one also you are saving it as a variable. So both of them, you give them different variable names so that the previous one doesn't get replaced by the recent one. It is just like in mathematical equations. You have x equals to some value, y is equals to some value. Then you will want to use x and y in your equation later. So you give them different container names, kind of thing. But if you have to remember, if you say x equals to 5 and below it you say x equals to 10, then 5 is gone. The value of x will be 5. And if you want the previous value of x, you will not get it. You will get only the new value of x. So it is something analogous. Okay. Second question is here. We have a scheduler. We have.
I have a question, Dr. Fassam.
Sure.
What do we have to do to avoid the replacement?
Of the payload or the variable?
Both of them.
So the variables, we give them different names. This one is var1. This one is var2. So this one, it will not replace this one. The payload is like yesterday. If you followed yesterday's class, payload also we can save it as a variable, so that in that way it doesn't get replaced. Here, for example, if I want to save this first payload as a variable because I want to use it after the second payload, I can create a variable. Go to code, bring this set variable here, and here let's call it var3 maybe. Then here the payload, I save it as a variable. So now the payload will be saved in this variable. This payload, the first payload, will be saved in this variable. And as far as the variable name is unique, it will not get replaced. Okay. Yesterday, for example, that's what we did. When data was sent as JSON from Postman, since we were removing the headers, and later on we want to create key value pairs. And if we remove the headers, since we cannot create key value pairs, first we saved the data, the payload as a variable. Then we use that when we transform it to JSON. Okay, the second question is here. So the second question, this one, there is a scheduler. It runs every some seconds. Let me see the question. Okay, what is logged by the logger? So here I have a transform message. As you see, so we said in this transform message, we said this part is like it tells we are using DataWeave 2.0 version 2.0, and the output is JSON, and I have this data here. Now see this one, there is this type of expression. Type of is a function, so it gives you the type of the payload, in this case the type of the input. So the question is, what will be printed to the console? We said a logger prints to the console. It prints the message to the console. So our payload is this one, and we have type of here. What gets printed? Is it JSON? Is it array? Is it object? Is it CSV? Is it XML?
JSON. That is JSON.
Object.
Okay.
Because output application is JSON.
Okay. Yeah. So that is good thing. That's why I included it. So a JSON can have a JSON. Let's see. This is JSON, for example, as you can see. This is array, so even if it is JSON, it is an array because it contains many objects. That means many rows, or about many information about many airports in this case. So we have this object, we have this object, we have this object, and the array is collection of objects. So this is an object, we said, whereas the whole of it is an array. So this one, when in the logger, type of this will be it will be object. Let's check that. And The other thing, important thing that we will cover today is DataWeave Playground. Let me open the DataWeave Playground and show you. So it opens this. I can bring it here. And so it is interactive. You can write your code here and it gives you output. So we say DataWeave is the data transformation tool for MuleSoft. So now let me copy this. This is the data. And come here. And the question is, what is the type of that? Type of. Now I can print my data here, paste my data here. So as you can see, this is an object. But if I do like this, if I put it in a square bracket, even if it has one object, it can have one or more objects. An array can have one or more objects. Let me expand this. If I put it in a square bracket, as you can see, this is an array. Whereas if it doesn't have a square bracket, it is an object. And JSON can have only one object, or it could be a collection of many objects. So that is the second question. Let's go to the third one.
So,
anyone?
if you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Speaking of types of data, what other types of data do we have?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we will see them in the DataWeave Playground today. Another question I have is, let's see, what is this one? This one, if I go to the notes here. Okay, so there is set variable here. You can click this one to show the graphical view. So this is an object of an airport. Now I want to get the name of the airport. How do I get it? The variable name, let me show you the variable name. As you can see, this is an object. Now the question is, this is a variable. I'm setting a variable here. Done. Go here. The variable name is airport. Now here, how to log the name of the airport? How do I get the name of the airport? Who can tell? Who can guess? That's what we are going to practice today. We have not seen it yet. I mean, a little bit here in the areas, but not like concretely. So who can? Sorry?
Airport.name.
Yes, vars, nice. Var, yeah, first I change this to an expression, then vars dot. When I do, okay, when I write vars, I guess if I click space or control, yeah, control. If you click control space, it brings available variables. So vars dot airport dot yeah, name. Thank you. We do like this, and this is what we are going to practice. So in DataWeave, if I take this object, let me copy the data. So this is our object. Take it to DataWeave. You can practice by doing like that after the class. So remove this. And so paste the data here. We are not creating a variable, but from this object to get the name of the airport, we just add name here. So if I do name, as you can see from this object, I just can, since this is key value, this object has key value pairs. If I do dot key, it should give me the corresponding value. So the key for the airport is the name. If I do name, it will give me airport name. If I do lat, it will give me the latitude. If I do long, it will give me the longitude and so on. So that's what we do when we have objects to access the values of different keys. Okay, we'll come to DataWeave. We will come to DataWeave. Let's first finish the questions and we'll come to the DataWeave Playground. Another last question is, what is it saying here? So what gets printed to the logger? Okay, there is set payload here. Hello, how are you today? And the logger message, as you can see, type of. So what is the type of the payload in this case is the question. What is the type of the payload? We are printing the type of the payload to the console. what is the type of the payload. And the payload, you can see it here. Set payload is here, the set payload component, and the value is here, the name is here.
String.
String.
The value.
The
String
value,
is a type.
yeah, here I have type of, I mean, in the message, it is not payload, it is type of payload. So what gets printed? Do you think?
String.
String, maybe. String.
Okay. Okay, yeah, for those of you who have not seen the data types, that's okay, we'll see it today. Yeah, but it prints CSV. So even if here it says set to CSV, what dictates the data type is not the display name that you give here, rather the value that is here. And this is a string. If you don't click this fx to make it an expression, whatever value you write, if you write it like this, it is a string. We'll see the different data types that we have. So these are the questions. I will add to the slides. If there are some things that you don't understand when we see the playground, DataWeave playground, the different data types, and play with it, you will understand it. So, but before going to the DataWeave playground, let me get back to the slides and at a high level talk why we need DataWeave at this time. So what I want to do is in the coming class, we want to see different hands-on with the different flow types. There are different flow types: main flow, subflow, and private flow. So one flow can call another flow. These different flow types have their own properties. And rather than creating a very long flow, we can divide our flows into subflows with multiple flows with some logical concept. So, and connect them. The main flow can call other subflows, for example. It can call other flows. So we want to see that hands-on. And in the hands-on, we want to transform data from one format to the other. The data formats we are considering are CSV, XML, JSON, and Excel. And in the data transformation, we will write DataWeave code. So I don't want to overwhelm you with DataWeave code, especially when we transform XML and XLSX. It needs some DataWeave. So it may not look intuitive for you if we don't see DataWeave basics first. Can you guys, can you mute yourselves, guys, please? Abraham, can you mute yourself, please? So for that reason, we will see DataWeave basics today. But before we see the DataWeave basics today, let's see what are the differences between flows, subflows, and private flows, and why do we use them. So using subflows, rather than writing a long code, using subflows and private flows makes our application easier to manage and understand, because we don't have to scroll to the left and to the right to see the different components. We don't want very long flows that go off of the screen. We can call them more than once. If you have one flow can be called multiple times. So rather than, for example, if you have a transformer and followed by a write operation, and if you are doing that a couple of times, rather than bringing the transform and write to the canvas multiple times, you can create a subflow and refer to that flow using flow reference. Use that subflow. So that way it becomes more neat and easy to manage, easy to debug, and if there is error, also it is easier to test and fix the problem. Also the XML code also looks easier. So we are going to see all these things when we build hands-on application. But these are the different types of flows we have: main flow, or we'll simply call it flow, subflows, and private flows. And their differences are shown here. So for a main, we said for a flow to compile by itself, standalone, it needs at least a processor, we said. However, flow generally can have three components: a source trigger, an error handler and also a processor, a source trigger, and the error handler are optional. As you can see, Subflow, for example, it doesn't have both of them. It doesn't have event sources, it doesn't have like HTTP listener, it doesn't have a scheduler, and so on. It doesn't also have error handler, whereas private flow has error handler. So one of the main differences between Subflow and private flow is private flow has an error handler, whereas Subflow doesn't have error handler or event sources or source trigger, whereas the main flow will have the main flow that refers to the other to the subflows will have the source trigger, processors, and error handler. So these are the different flow types that we have. And what we want to do is we want to build, let me show you at a high level, we want to build these kinds of subflows. One subflow, it transforms data to JSON and writes it to JSON. Another subflow transforms data to CSV and writes it to CSV. Another subflow transforms it to Excel and writes it to Excel. And in the main flow, we have this main flow. We want to use a scatter gather and reference each one of them. So when we reference each one of them, the subflows here, they will be called to the main, they will act as if they are the parts of the main flow. So this flow reference for first one, if it references this one, the first row here, for example, transforming and writing to JSON, that will act as part of this main flow. So that is what we are going to see, but it needs the data transformation, understanding the basics of DataWeave. So today we are not building this application, rather we will practice DataWeave. But before we practice DataWeave, let me again show you the different flow types here. And if you are fine, if you understand the different flow types, at least the theory at a high level, I have also added a source, a blog here, a resource that you can read to understand more. If you understand this, I have Kahoot questions that we can quickly go over. Then we get back to DataWeave and we will spend more of our time practicing DataWeave expressions. The other important point here that you see is from computation efficiency perspective, you can call a flow from another flow, but calling a subflow is more performant because it is in the same context. We don't go to the details, but remember that referencing a subflow is more efficient than referencing another flow or another private flow. So we have these types of flows. And do you have any question on the theory of the flow types? Okay, or else let me have, now we can, what we can do is I have Kahoot here and let's play this. Quickly play this, then we'll get back the DataWeave playground. Okay, I'm starting. There are easy questions. So this question, it says, what trigger can you use? Okay, what trigger can you use to automate processing data that is coming to the folder every hour? Continuously coming data. We discussed about on new or updated files. We didn't see hands-on, but at least we discussed it. We discussed the listener and the scheduler, what they do. 3 of them are triggers. So a listener listens an HTTP trigger, a request, for example, an invoke sent from Postman. Scheduler, you can schedule it every 5 seconds, for example, to do something. On new or updated file, explicitly, it checks a folder if it has a new or updated file, and then it triggers a flow. So you can see the scheduler and on new or updated file can process data that is coming in. I mean, the scheduler, if you schedule it every 5 seconds, it tries to read if there is new data and delete is, you can delete what was there and read if there is new data. And on new or updated file also, particularly it checks for files. So both of them can be used as triggers to process data that is continuously coming to a specific location. For example, it could be Amazon Web Services. They have, for example, a data store called Simple Storage Service, or S3. So you can, in your application, you can point to that, to a specific bucket, a specific folder, and you can have another application dumping data frequently to that folder, and the Mule application can check that folder or that bucket and process the data. And some part of it, it can delete it if it is not useful. Some part of it, if it is important, it can save it to another more secure database, and some part of it, it can send it to another location, and so on. So the next question is, which of the following flows doesn't have an error handler? So we talked about the different flow types and their differences. Yep. So Subflow doesn't have a source. It doesn't also have an error handler, whereas a private flow has. It doesn't have a source, but it has an error handler. So last one. Source trigger. Which of the following doesn't have a source trigger? This one I have already. Yep, so the main flow has a source trigger, but Subflow and private flow, we reference them, we call them from the main flow, so they don't have a source trigger. So this is all about the Kahoot. Now we'll get back to DataWeave. Okay? Cool, thank you so much, Asfal and Destalem. And it is me. Appreciate the participation. So now let's get back to DataWeave. There is DataWeave Playground. Those of you who have not seen the slides, I have added the link to it on slide 7. Can get it from there. So when I open it, it is this one. I have kind of increases the zoom level. Maybe let me decrease it. So let me start with 100. Okay, so it is this one. There is this playground where you can, on the top right, you see tutorial and playground. So in the playground, you write code and you get output. So here you write your code on the middle panel and you get the output on the right panel. That is the playground. The tutorial, it has step-by-step explanations with data, with exercises. You can also play with your own. So this is very important. Bookmark it, start from the top, read it one by one. If you don't understand it the first time you read some concepts, that's fine. Just repeat it again. And also we will cover it in detail later, so that's fine. We just want to cover what is important for the data transformation part only in this case. So today we are going to cover up to 3.4. So from introduction at a high level up to 3.4, the things that we have, some of them we have seen them already. We will see these ones. So here you see MIME types. There are different MIME types in Endpoint Studio. For example, when we let me add the file module and try to read. If I bring this read here and click here, we were specifying MIME type. There is this MIME type drop down. These are the different MIME types they have. Usually we work with CSV, JSON, XML. These are the more common ones. But as you can see, there are different MIME types. And that is what it is saying here. The MIME types, the common ones are these ones. And in here, they are giving an input. The first question that I want to ask you is, if I have this input, what is the data type of this input? Is it an array, or is it an object, or is it JSON? This one.
Array.
Okay. Yeah. So this one we can check it here. Type of payload. Type of payload. Oh yeah, I don't have payload. Okay, this payload. Let me bring it here. This one, can remove it here, and let's say don't worry about the variable for now. So yes, this is an array. So always, if it is in square brackets, it is an array. If it is in curly braces, it is an object. So step by step here, they are explaining. They have tutorials step by step. So you go read it. And there are different types, data types here. You see strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, and objects. So we have seen arrays and objects. Booleans are just true and false. Numbers are any kind of number. You see type of 1.234, for example, it prints number. Strings are anything that we put with quotes here, for example. It could be any alphanumeric or any other kind of characters that we put within quotes. It is called strings. So these are the common data types that we have to know in DataWeave transformations: strings, numbers, booleans, arrays, and objects. So you can read this one by one and understand it. Okay, next here we have about accessing. So I have this object that you see. I have this object. From the object, so about when we access data, we can talk about accessing from strings, accessing from arrays, or accessing from objects. So let's say, for example, I have this object, and from this object, I want to get the value of number. So if I want to get the value of number, if it is an object, I just add dot, like we said, we just put dot, and then we see the different keys here. So we see key, number, boolean, these are the keys. So if I just put string, for example, oh yeah, it gives me its value. So string is a key, and its value is hello. So when we have an object, the value of the object, we can access a single value accessing. We access it using dot notation, or we can also just put, I think, this one. Let's see. In other languages we do like this. Both ways they work fine. You can use either dot, or within square bracket you can put the key inside quotation marks. So that is how we access values from from objects, and from objects. Whereas from arrays, let's talk about accessing values from arrays. So I have this array, for example, let's say, let me create an array here, and let me call it. So I'm creating a variable. To create a variable here, we start with var. Var, I'm calling it fish, and let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. So the array has these numbers. So an array can have numbers, anything. An array is collection of any of these data types. It can be collection of strings, numbers, booleans, even it can be collection of arrays. We call it array of arrays. So in arrays, when we have arrays, to access the value of the arrays, we use this indexing. So the first one, we start indexing at 0. The first one is 0. If you go to the right, from left to the right, if our array is, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, 32, the first one is index 0. We start at index 0. In some languages, you may get they start at 1. For example, R starts at 1, Python starts at 0. It varies from language to language. But in DataWeave, we start from 0. So the first one is 0, we go increasing. We can also get back to the left, starting from the right. In that case, we start from -1. So 32 is -1, its index position is -1, 16 is -2, and so on. So if we know how we index them, then we can select either a specific value or ranges. Like for example, if this is my payload, if I do payload square bracket 0, it will give me 1. If I do payload square bracket 1, it will give me 2. If I do payload square bracket 5, it will give me 32. Or if I do payload square bracket -1, it will give me the last one, because negative is from the right, as you can see. And the negative especially, they become important when we want data from towards the end of the array. Like it could be starting from the end, we may want the first one, like the last one, or a couple of them from the end of the array. So we use negative indexing in that case. We can also use, as you can see here, the range selector. We can use N to M. Like if I do payload square bracket 2 to 4, for example, if I do payload square bracket 2 to 4, it will give me 4, 8, and 16. Let's experiment this. If we come here and maybe increase other values also here. So I have this variable, this data. If I simply write fish, it will, as you can see, it prints out in the output. It prints out everything here. If I do fish of 0, it gives me 1. If I do fish of 2, it gives me 3, because 0, 1, 2, as you can see. Or I can start from the end, from the right, -1, it will give me 89, and -2, it gives me 67. Or I can do 0 to 3, for example, as you can see, from 0 to 3. So it gives me 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I can use 2, start and end. And in some languages, those of you who use Python, in NumPy, for example, it doesn't include the last one, but in DataWeave, it is inclusive from the start to the end. So we see that. You can also do negative with range. So I can say from -1 to -3 to mean the last 3. So this one, it gives me the last 3. So in this playground, you can play with that and practice more to understand how we can access values from arrays and also from strings. Also, we can have a nested object. Like, let me create a nested object and show you. So a nested object is like this. For example, let me call it data. The data is this. It is an array, as you can see, and school, some other information, my high school, and another information is location. Under location, I can put another object again. So the zip, for example, I can give it 34567, and CD Colombia, and state Maryland. So this is an object, as you can see. This is an object because we see it is in curly braces, but the object contains different things. If I can check to check the type of that object. I can simply do like this, type of fish, and what did I do wrong here? Okay. Oh yeah, this one I have to close. Yeah. So as you can see, when I do type of fish, it gives me, it is an object, but that object inside it, I have an array, and you may want to access different things from here. For example, let's start accessing first let's access data. So I can do fish, it is an object we said, so when I do dot, it gives me the different keys. So fish.data, it gives me all the data. Now, let me ask you this question. How do I get the last value of the data, like 89? How can I get 89 in this case?
You put
Fish.
Right. And whatever number, -6.
Fish.data becomes, yeah, now when I do fish.data, you can experiment on the way, by the way, if you don't understand it. Yes, so when I do fish.data, it is giving me an array. I know how to access an array, so I do -1. So this is how I access it. And this data, if I want to get the state, how do I do the state? How do I get Maryland? How can I get this Maryland value? Fish dot location.
That's square bracket.
Yes, dot, not square bracket, because this is an object, as you can see. So dot, when I add dot, I can do like this. So yeah, practice with this more. It is intuitive. Once you start playing with it, it should be very intuitive. So, okay, I have a question. I think I have one question here, for example. This one, it says refer to the exhibit. What is the correct DataWeave expression for accessing the time zone of this airport? Which one is it? The second one. So as you can see, this is an array. Oh, by the way, another function that we use with arrays is there is size of. So it gives you the size of the array. So here, like for example, let me change this to an array, and can remove, just have the numbers only, for that matter, make it simpler. So another function is size of. When you start typing, it gives suggestions also. So if I do size of fish, it tells me there are 7 elements. When you have an array, you can check the size by putting size of. So I'm showing these questions because these functions, because we'll use them in the data transformation. Also pay attention because you use them. They appear in the certifications, and in actual data transformations also you use them. So they are very important. You have to practice with them and understand them. So far we have seen type of, it gives you the type of the data, and size of, if it is an array, it gives you the size of the array. We have seen how to access elements from an array. It could be a single value or range of values. We have also seen how to access values from an object using dot notation when we have an object. So the object name dot the key, it gives you the value for that key. Okay, so this one, the size of, I brought that because here I have this data, and I said it has 2 elements because it has information about 2 airports. So this one, if I bring it here and replace this by that information, as you can see, size of here, where is
2.
Okay, size of fish is here. Okay, so this is the data. I have created this array of airports for each airport, an object. Now Size of fish gives me two objects here. In an array, we can have objects or other things or numbers, any of these data types. So size of fish gives 2. Now the question is this one. I got a similar one. I remember a similar question when I took the certification. So that's why I brought this. The data is different, but the question is conceptually similar. So now the question is, this airport, I want its time zone. Let's say I want this one, the America, Chicago. How do I access that? How can I access that? Who can tell me? So I start fish. Do I use square brackets or dot notation here?
Dot notation,
Why?
because you're trying to get one thing, specifically the time zone.
But this is an array. So if it is an array,
Well, square bracket.
Brackets.
yes. So see this one. Yeah, it is tricky. So if it is this one, if you type here, if I put, I think we know this already. If I put type of fish, it tells me this is an array.
Yeah.
So if it is an array, to access values from the array, the first one, we start with 0. Yeah, square bracket 0. 1, the second one. Or we can start with
the second one.
Yeah, or we can put -1 to access the last one. So in this case, we want this one, and since the indexing starts at 0, its indexing starts at 0. That means the index of this object is 0, where the index of this one is 1. So I put 1. Now see what it returns. Now, yes. Now, yes. Now what it returns is an object. Now, since it is an object, I can use dot notation. Now, when I do dot, it gives me all the available keys, and I select T-zone. You see, it gives me America, Chicago. So this should be the answer. Let me paste the answer here. In this question. So simply, if this is a payload, assume this is a payload. So the answer will be payload. The first element from the payload followed by the T-zone. Okay. So that is how we access the different values. Maybe I can ask you, let's say, the latitude of this airport, the latitude of the first object. So the same thing with this one also. I do fish of 0 followed by lat. Yeah. In this case, you can use dot. With objects, you can use dot or square bracket. I can also do square bracket, string, lat also. They both give me the latitude.
Doctor, can I ask you before you proceed?
Yeah.
If you want to see multiple instead of object, like to see an array, what number you use instead of putting 0 or 1?
Oh yeah, so yeah, we use this indexing. We can use range from n to m. So here, for example, we're talking about that here. Let's say we have
0 to
you just use 2. So let's say 1, 4, 7, 8, 10.
No.
Can you mute yourself, please? Okay, thank you. So if I do fish of 0, it gives me, we say, the first one, and fish of -1, it gives me the last one. But we can also access from like 0 to 2 or to 3, for example. So this means from the start to the third element, up to the first 3. This means the first 3, basically. As you can see, it gives me the first 3. So we use 2 if we want a range. Or we can also, we may be interested to get a range starting from the right. And in that case, we start from -1 to -3, for example. So So it gives, this one gives me the last 3. So this is how we access arrays. We have here under reading data, we have accessing single value and range selector. You can see it here, and multi-value selector also. This multi-value selector. The reason, by the way, that I am showing you this is in our transformation, we want to transform JSON data, XML data to other formats. And let me open the XML data and show you what it looks like. So we have this XML data. So you see, it is like this. There is a root node. It is data, and it closes at the end. It closes at the end that node, data node. So you see, when I click the first node, the data node at the top, when I click this, you see there is on the left there is a red vertical line. It is showing me the start and the end. So this is, everything is under the data node. So to get everything, if we call this payload, to get everything, I have to start with payload dot data, if this is an object. So in the data transformation, in the slides, I was putting this here, and that's the reason I started talking about the DataWeave transformation. So if we have the payload, then we do payload dot data. So when we do payload dot data, we get all these rows, different rows. Then to access the different rows in DataWeave, we have to talk about this one, multi-value selector. So multi-value selector, it selects when there are different values. Like for example, see this one, I have name. The key is, there are duplicate keys. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 names here, that is C, name values, and there is surname. And I may want to get the different names from here. So that is called multi-value selector. And in that case, we use dot star followed by key. Then it gives me all the values. So this one, copy it here, take it to the playground, and I create this here. And in here, if I just type fish, it gives me this object. If I want the names only, if I do, let's see, if I do just name, it gives me the first one, as you can see. But I have multiple names. And in my in XML also we have multiple rows, and each row is, in this case, the same tag. So we see tag row tag, as you can see, row. Then inside it, about one airport, another row again, another row tag, another airport, and so on. So we want to get data for all of them. So this is multi-value selector. We use multi-value selector, and as you can see, if we just use dot notation in that case, it just gives us the first one. So to get all the names in this case, I add this dot star followed by key. Then, as you can see on the right, it gives me an array of all the names. This is an array, and it gives me an array of all the names. So this is multi-value selector. From an object, to select one value, we just use dot notation. Whereas to get all the values, we use dot star notation. So for our XML, the same way, since we have the same node repeating again and again in the slides, that is why I have put the payload dot data. This is the root node. When we have an XML file, we said we always have a root node. So payload dot data, rather than using dot row, if we just use dot row, it is going to return this one. But I want all of them as an array, so that is why I add this star here. That is multi-value selector, and as you can see, that is what we are doing here. And you may encounter a question, for example, what is the output of this one? It gives you this data. I can give you this data, and it may ask you, what is the output of this one? And the multiple choice could be array, object, and so on. So as you can see, it is an array. And if you do again, to reiterate, if you don't add the star sign here, it just gives you the first encounter for that key, the first name. So yeah, we have seen now about multi-value selector. That is what we want when we transform XML values. So go over the DataWeave tutorial, play with it. Feel free to make mistakes. If you get stuck, refresh it, and you can start over and spend more time on it, and it will be clear because we will practice more as well. Anyone has any questions?
Yes.
Is there
What
a
if you?
space after done?
Yes. What if you want to select 2 or 3 keys of an object? Can we use comma?
Okay, so
Like in this case, we have only name as the key.
yeah.
But what if we have different keys and we wanted to pick 2 or 3 keys?
So let's take, for example, from this airport, let's take this one, this object, and paste this here. Now from this airport, maybe we may want only the name and the time zone. You mean?
Right.
So I can create an array, for example, if I want it in an array format, or I will. Let's start with object format. If I want the output to be an object, then I can do, for example, name, or give it whatever key I want. Then this will be fish.name, comma. Let's say I want from this I want only the t-zone. Then t-zone fish.t-zone. Like I can select like this, or I can make so as you can see, I can select like this, or I can also this one. Let me remove it and simply can do an array fish.name and fish.tzone also. I mean, this one is not informative, but there are ways where there are cases where we may want to create an array. If you want to create an array, you start with square bracket and input, put anything here you want, or if you want it as an object, you create it like this. I think the other important thing when you play with DataWeave is about commenting. So you can comment a single line or multiple lines. So commenting means like that line doesn't get executed. So let's me see, for example here. So this is fish. To comment that line, what you do is you put // okay, let me see. Okay, remove this. Var okay, fish is 1 2 3. Another variable, fish again, 4 5 7. Now if I type fish, because it is the same variable name, the first variable will be overwritten by the second. Or is it saying duplicate variables? Okay, so it is not allowed to have 2. But if I want, okay, let's say this one, I call it fish2. If I want this line, I just have displayed the values for fish. If I don't want this to be executed, I just add this double /. So // is commenting for a single line, but if you want to comment multiple lines, let me add here and call this fish3 to comment multiple lines. I think it is, you can do like this, I guess. So anything, if you start with /* and close it with star / anything in between gets commented out. So that is also another important thing to know. Okay.
Can we do double minus sign to comment?
Double minus sign, oh, like SQL style? I don't think, no, it doesn't work that way. I don't think so. Like, for example, let's remove this. And if I put this, it gives me an error. This thing varies from language to language. Like in Python, for example, it is it is hash in Python, and in R, I know it is hash sign. In other languages, it is something else. So it varies from language to language. So in DataWeave, if it is a single line, you use forward slash. If it is multiple lines, you use forward slash star and close that with star forward slash. That is how you comment it out. Okay, let's discuss more, and as you ask questions and discuss more, you will understand if there are things you don't understand. Anyone has any questions?
If we skip a line, does that affect the whole data like that?
Like an empty line?
Yeah, between like, but we still have like we write the data correctly, but we skip a line on one of them. Like if you skip the line from the top to the second one.
Like here?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as we see, it looks for the start and the end. We are enclosing it with square bracket in this case. So if you enclose it with square bracket or with curly braces, it looks this is an array or an object. So it is fine even if there are empty lines.
All right.
Yeah, so you can play more with the playground and understand more. Okay. So that is why in here, that is why I'm doing, when I transform in this hands-on, we want to transform XML files to other formats. And that is why we are using dot notation, because the payload is first an object. In that dot notation, we get the data root node, and we are using dot star for accessing, like as multi-selector to select all the raw tags, because we said we have many raw tags here. So that is what we are going to practice next time. If you get time and if you want to practice it, you can play first over DataWeave Playground, go over DataWeave Playground. Then if you get time, get back to these sliders and try to implement the hands-on. Let me see if I have any other questions here. Oh yeah, the other question, this one is, I guess this one, let me okay, this question, especially this one, let me move it to the top. It is part of this theory, so I can paste it here. So what is it saying? So it is this question. See this question. A flow contains a flow reference. The flow reference references a child flow or a private flow, and a subflow or a private flow. And it says here we are referencing a subflow. And when we reference, we said, I talked about this in the theory part. When we reference a subflow, what components of the Mule event of the main flow is accessible to the child flow? You may encounter such questions, so it is good to understand that. So when we create a flow that references another subflow, everything from it acts like the subflow. It acts as if it is part of the main flow. So the execution is as if it is part of the main flow, and everything of the Mule event of the main flow is accessible to the child flow. So the answer for this one is the entire Mule event. Remember this. When we use subflows, the entire Mule event of the flow is accessible to the child flow, and also the output of the child flow is accessible to the main flow. So the child flow, it executes and gets back the results to the main flow. Paul, when we build the hands-on, you will understand it more. But they act, the subflows, it acts as if it is part of the main flow. So that is what, when we say scope, in this case, in the slides, it says scope means what part of the Mule event is accessible to the Subflow, what part of the Mule event from the Subflow is accessible to the main flow. Those kinds of things, you have to understand them when you build an application, because you have to understand as the Mule flow, as the Mule event moves around the flow. So understanding the scope for that reason is important. At every stage, what part of the Mule event is accessible, or what part of the Mule event is available that you can use. Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is I think lots of things for the week. You have lots of things to study. Go over the DataWeave tutorial. Again, this DataWeave tutorial, the link for it is on slide 7 and cover up to 3.4. And if there are things you don't understand, either ask questions or that's fine. Just if you understand what is enough for the data transformation part, since we are going to cover DataWeave in detail later, it should be fine if there are some things that look confusing for you. Okay, anyone has any questions? Nice. And also these questions that I showed on Anypoint Studio, also we are going to add them to the slides and you can go over them. Perfect. I stopped sharing. If you have any questions, I can take questions. Otherwise, we can stop here, play with the playground, the DataWeave playground, and I hope you will love it. It takes some time. In the beginning, it may look confusing, but if you practice, you will get it.
I have a question.
Sure.
About Postman. Just the Postman, when I request, it is not responding. So
Can you share your screen? Share is on the middle bottom of the screen.
yes, I can see.
Was the sound fine, by the way, today? Was it going up and down, or it was consistent?
It was consistent.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
It was
Yes.
consistent.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice. So I hope now that we have seen the DataWeave basics, almost a significant percentage of it, and also Anypoint Studio. Now you can.
Direct.
Now you have
Recursive global reference matcher.
Global reference matcher. What is that?
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
Did you click share and then entire screen?
Yes, when I try to share, it is asking me security-related questions.
Is that a laptop yours or work laptop?
It's my private laptop, but
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Maybe we can go to other people in the meantime. So, do you have a question? You have raised your hand.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So my question is the questions you were asking in the beginning of the class.
Yeah.
I think it's in the last question. In the logger, you were writing. You wrote type of payload. Sometimes you speak and you write at the same time. You are fast, but I just want to know is there a standard words we have to use? We have to type, like for example, on that the last question on the logger message, you wrote type of payload. So this we have we have to use this this word all the time, type of words, or if I can say like for example, kinds of payload. Is it gonna be the same result?
Okay, I get you. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you for asking that. So there are functions in programming language. When people write the programming languages, they have created functions which have specific meanings. So this is a function in DataWeave. Type of gives the type of the input. There is no kind of. And you can go, let me go show you the DataWeave DataWeave functions. We can check. Oh, let me share my screen, by the way. I thought I was sharing. Yeah, right. For some people who don't have programming background, this could be confusing. So I should have covered that first. Any programming language has functions, and the functions, it depends on what they called them and how they wrote it. So there are DataWeave functions, and each function has its own purpose. Let me go to core DataWeave. I think they are called core functions. The main function is, if I go here, I will add this to the slides. Let me add this to the slides. On slide 9, and as you see, that the function is okay. What do we see? We have these different functions. Double plus means concatenates two values. Like for example, yeah, we can continue. By the way, if I have, for example, fish double plus space double plus my last name Barhane, like this, for example, it is concatenating them together. So this is one function. Double plus is concatenation. This one, in some other languages, it may be different. It could be something else. But in DataWeave, it is double plus is concatenation. It concatenates two values together. And we have absolute value. We will see some of these in detail. The type of, let me show you, type of and size of. If we go here, size of is here. It says returns, if you see this one, returns the number of elements in an array. It returns 0 if the array is empty. And the type of is here also. Returns the type of a value. So these are the functions. Some of the functions that we have covered, you can go here and read about them. The others also, you can read as much as you can. We are going to cover most of them in the classes.
So if we use the function type of, and it's an object but not an array, it would come back as a failure?
Type of is for anything. Size of, you mean size of?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sharing this. Who is sharing their screen? Oh, so are you sharing your screen?
I think Kyle is sharing
it. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'm sharing,
Okay.
I was trying to fix my...
Okay, continue with your question, please.
Okay, let me... Just one. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me request this one.
Can you go to your Anypoint Studio application? Is it deployed? Okay, it is deployed. Can you show me the path? Can you click the path? Click the listener. Weather, city ID. Okay. can you show me the HTTP listener configuration? Can you click edit on the this one on the configuration? Yeah.
This one?
Yes. Okay, so everything looks perfect. Okay, now let's see what Postman is saying.
It's not responding, you know.
I think you are debugging.
Oh yeah, can you go to
The breakpoint.
Did you have breakpointers? Can you go to Endpoint Studio? Message flow. Click message flow.
Okay. Where is that?
Oh yeah. Okay, so to see that, what you do is click this debugger on the top right, the third button to the right, top right of your screen. That one, the debugger. Scroll to the right. That one.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Go click that one. Yes, click that. The debugger.
One?
The other one.
Yes.
That one. No, that one.
Yes, next.
That
The green one. The green one.
Scroll over them and read it one by one.
Okay.
Yes, that one.
Okay.
So that is why. So you see here, it has sent the request, but it has stopped because you have added a breakpoint. So you have to click the next button for it to go to the next processor.
Even, yes, I tried that one even, you know.
Okay, continue again.
Okay.
Click again. Can you click it multiple times? Maybe sent multiple times. And okay, go to Postman now.
Okay.
So it works fine. Yeah, that was the issue. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Can you unshare your screen?
Yeah, I will stop sharing.
Okay, someone was asking, was it size of? Where is size of function? Size of returns the number of elements in an array. So this one, it works for an array, but you can check it in here. You can bring data to DataWeave. And oh yeah, okay, let me share. Share screen. So if I write size of, by the way, when I start typing, it gives me suggestions of functions. So size of is here. Then if I do size of 1, 2, 4, this is an array. 1, 2, 3, it gives me is three elements. What about if I input an object? Is a question, and I can delete that and put an object here, and it gives me there are 5 elements. So it is not only for an array. That means for it works for an object also. This object, it has 5 key value pairs. It gives the count of key value pairs for an object also. Even if in the documentation it says returns the number of elements in an array, it works for an object also. So yeah, when you have any such questions, you can test them in the playground itself.
Yeah, can I share my screen? And I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this one, I think this error message, I have seen it before. It seems your Java version is, okay, what is it saying? The Java version seems, yes.
Okay, let me check my Java version and after.
Yeah. Can you open command prompt? Just open in the search bar, type CMD.
Okay, let's go. Okay.
Yeah, then Java.
Yes,
version. I think you have to spell out version.
Okay. This is 18.
Looks fine. Yeah, this looks fine.
So is that the right version?
Yeah, this is the right version of Java. That is what we are using. But in my other laptop.
Let me show my C directory, I have been this is my endpoint studio. Then I start to run the endpoint studio from here.
Yeah.
It's not the same with other applications. I can just run the application from my install program. I simply run from the folder.
Yeah, you can run it from the folder by just double clicking that application. That's what we are doing.
The same thing what I'm running, just displaying now. So when I try to run the project, I had the same issue. Last time also somebody had the same issue. I don't know how he fixed it.
I had the same error at some point, and it was.
I think I'm not sure if the
do you have multiple Java installations? Can you go to your C folder?
Okay, my C folder.
The program files.
Okay, I'll show you my program files. S6.
Yeah, we'll check both of them.
I think the Java version you recommended is 1.8, not 18.
Oh yeah, you have multiple Java versions. This could also cause this problem.
So which version is guys? Are this
That
one 1.8?
Yes.
1.8, yeah.
1.8.
So that you first uninstall all of them. First go to control panel and remove all of them and install only Java 1.8.
I have been using this version for another programming development. That's okay. I'll try to remove them.
Okay.
The issue, I will just remove that. But I have been using the other version of Java for another development. Okay.
Okay.
If that is the issue, I will try to uninstall that and let me just see whether it happens.
Yes, it will solve your problem because I encountered the same exact error at some point.
Okay. Other development is the latest version of Java.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can try with one Java version. You have multiple installations here.
Okay, I'll try to uninstall and.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for me.
Can I ask a question?
Okay. Go ahead, please.
If we like we just saw on his page how he has multiple Javas. If we create another user on our computer, would that still be come up as an issue?
I didn't try that, but theoretically it should work fine. If you have another user and for the other user you installed the right version of Java, and for the root user you have another version of Java, it should work fine, but I didn't test it.
I tried to use another user account on my same PC, but it's not working, has the same issue. So having different user accounts is not the solution for.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm saying it didn't work for you. Okay. Yeah, but theoretically you can have different versions for different users because each user should get access to their version of the installed version of the software. But I'm not sure. Yeah, if you tried it and it didn't work, then I'm not sure. I don't know it. I didn't test that.
If you delete all the previous Javas on the other account, would it be still the same? Like, can you delete the Java versions?
You have to uninstall them. The correct way of removing a software from your computer is going to the control panel and uninstalling them, and also removing from the folder if there are any artifacts and reinstalling them.
So when you uninstall it on the other user account, it won't affect the main account, right? The other user.
Yes, that's updated. Yes, I tried that one.
Okay. 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 Anyone has any other question?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
So my laptop is a MacBook Pro. So when I try to debug, it doesn't work for me. So can I share my screen once?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. You have, yes.
So show me this on the top. It doesn't show me the result. It just says waiting for a Mule message to arrive.
Did you send postman request?
From the postman, you need to send send the data from the postman.
Okay.
So basically, this is a listener. So it listens to requests coming in. If there is no any request coming in, it will not show you anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, try that like that. Do you have Postman installed?
Yes, I do.
Can you open it?
Can you see?
I don't see Postman. I see Anypoint Studio or a screenshot. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So now you have to put the complete path. What was the complete path?
Yeah.
Can you go to your Anypoint Studio? I think you have to watch some of the videos if you didn't follow, if you were not in one of the classes. Yeah, okay. So the city ID, you have to put a value for city ID, not like that, just the 10, for example.
Question mark, I think.
After city ID.
Just remove the curly brace.
Question mark, yeah.
Remove the curly brace. 10.
Question mark, then.
Then the state.
Put question mark, state equals to CA, for example. Okay, Maryland. And remove, you have double forward slash before weather. Remove one of the forward slash. Now send it. I think if you watch, go to Postman now. You will get data there to Anypoint Studio.
What's the Anypoint?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we did this in the video. So if you were not in the class, watch one of the videos and you will get we will get this in details. Okay, perfect. Can you unshare your screen? Nice.
About the user account environment for the Java, there are two kinds of user environment: system variable and user variable. So if you adjust your user variable for your specific user, it will handle that.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see. Yeah. So rather than putting, so what he said is, if you put it to the user variable, different users in a given laptop, they specify the versions of the software they are using in the user variable, not in the system variable. So yeah, you can try it like that and see if it works. Someone who asked before.
Doctor, can I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, regarding to the versions of the Java, I want to be made clear. These are the Java versions what have been installed before. Which version you use, guys? Are it 18, 17, 11, or which one you use?
1.8.
1.8? That mean 18 or
1.820?
One is that I'm not sure.
1.8.
So are you just watching just my screen? This is only what I'm studying. If that's out of them, I can use that.
You have to download. Yeah.
I think the 8 is 1.8. You can use the link that Fish sent. That will take you exactly to
Is that the right one?
Where the driver is.
You have to reinstall the Java.
It is 8. Kit 8 update. That's an update, but it's 8. Java 8 is
Java 8.
Java 8 is 1.8. Yeah.
Is that 18 is 1.8?
No, it's 8, not 18.
The first one. Java 8 update to 02. No, the upper one.
Yeah.
The first one, this?
But that's an update. That's not
yeah.
development kit.
Okay.
That's the second one.
The second one?
Yeah, definitely.
That's still an update. That's what
I can share my screen and show you.
Okay. Let's
JDK.
Okay.
Yeah, so in my case, what do I have? If I go to control panel and programs, sort by name, and this one is what I have.
Development kit.
Yeah, that
JDK.
the 1.8 when installed, it is showing like this.
Okay, yeah, kit 8, update 2.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what you have.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You can go over the video. We have one video in the channel. Okay, perfect. So I think this is enough for today. If you don't have